everyone. My name is Victoria Passarella, and this is the Italian American Leadership Network podcast. We're excited to start getting these up and going. So, whether you follow us on YouTube or other places where you can find podcasts, we absolutely appreciate it. We appreciate all your support. We're new, we're just getting started. So if you could subscribe, if you can let your people in your community know about this, we would appreciate it. We're very kind of grassroots right now. So any support is really means a lot. It makes a big difference for us. So thank you. In this podcast, essentially what we do is that we explore the professional lives of Italian Americans. We focus on a whole range of people of different generations, different careers, but we do tend to have an emphasis on the millennial and Gen Z generation to kind of just see kind of what's going on now, what are people struggling with, what do we have in common, and overall is how we could support each other while providing a platform to show you different role models. So today I'm going to be talking to someone that I have known for years, and I'm so excited to finally have her on the podcast. So we were starting out the podcast. She was on like my original short list of like, these are definitely the people that we have to talk to. I have known her through her career journey and now seeing her flourish into those next steps. I'm really excited to learn what she has been up to. So I'm learning with everyone else. So Alexa, I'm so happy for you to be here. If you just want to introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll get started.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm so happy to be here. Actually, you and I have been going back and forth on when the date's going to be. And it's crazy during these times of the coronavirus how busy we can be, which is amazing. But back to the question, my name's Alexa Anisi. I am from Staten Island, New York. I am 22 years old. I just graduated from Adelphi University as a communications major with a minor in psychology and dance. I went to Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, which is this big performing arts high school in Manhattan as a dance major. So dance has been such a big part of my life. So is fitness and now on-air hosting and entertainment. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I am one of four in an Italian household. My grandparents came off the boat from Italy, Sicily to be exact, Agrigento. It's a small town in Italy. And yeah, I'm just like so excited to be here, so excited to share my story, and so excited to reconnect with you. If you guys didn't know, Victoria has been giving me some career advice through Adelphi and then later on with her own company. So this is great.
Yeah, perfect. For those of you who don't know the high school that she's referring to, it's the famous Fame School. Not everyone has a movie about the high school that they went to. So it's that one. So she's like super legit, super talented.
Thank you for
Very
hyping me up.
very much a New Yorker, originally from Staten Island, went to high school in Manhattan and all of that. So she's the real deal. What I absolutely love about this whole venture of working on the Italian American Leadership Network is that I learn so much about people, and my Sicilian side is from the same part of Sicily that you are from. So
No way, you're from Agrigento?
yeah, that was not planned. I did not
No,
know.
that was not planned at all. I mean, my grandpa was from Castro Filippo. I don't know if that's the town that you're,
It's the general region, and the thing that's so cool about it is that like within the past few months, it's definitely because of Corona, like I've just been like, just doing more research on stuff at home. I've been researching it more and more, and how just like the history that's there and everything is like so fascinating, which
Yeah.
which we can get into later. But when you said that, I was just like, what? I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
very
I don't even know if I really look Italian. I have blue eyes, you can't really tell, and like I'm very light. So a lot of my family is actually dark. But two of my siblings, we both have the light eyes, light hair situation. So it's very interesting. A lot of people wouldn't guess that I'm Italian from just looking at me.
yeah, that's the interesting thing about being um Southern Italian in particular, because like the default is like dark hair, dark eyes, like olive skin, like that is the default. But then like every family has the person who's like light, and it's like, where do they come from?
Where did you come from, right? So
No, but that's it's especially like in Sicily, like you'll have people who have the light eyes, have the light hair, and like their sibling could look completely different. So it's kind of like part of the genetic interesting backgrounds that we have. Um, Before we kind of get started into your background, because you mentioned your grandparents and like that's the type of stuff that like I'm super fascinated to learn more about, but just to kind of give a little bit of a foundation for everyone to kind of understand kind of where you're coming from. So you definitely have a background in dance, like you said. um Undergrad, you were absolutely like rock star, college campus leader, all of that, absolutely involved in everything, which I have questions about that. And then now, after graduating, you are kind of being super entrepreneurial and working on a few different things. One of them is a family business. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
yeah, so actually right behind me, it's so funny that I'm here right now. So because I'm a family of six, I mean, three siblings, me is the fourth. I mean, I'm the first, but um, I needed to come in the basement. And in the basement is where we have a lot of our stuff going on. And my brother, actually, who's a senior in college right now, he started a business right off the bat of COVID, right during, not everybody's doing that. You know, a lot of businesses were shutting down, and he started one. We started an online fitness business. Both of us are truly passionate about impacting people, helping them become more confident, helping them gain more control, not only of their minds, but their health. My brother is going to be a nurse coming up, and we're both personal trainers and nutrition coaches. And we just put our skills to the test, and we said we want to impact people, you know, whether it's one person or, you know, a million. You know, we want to help people navigate weight loss and becoming their best selves. And for us, that never meant drastic changes. So the company's called Anisi PT Services. It is our last name. Our little logo is live your life healthy and fulfilled. Fulfillment is something huge. Health we see as not only physical health, but peace in your mind, mental, emotional, social. I mean, it's a well-being that we're trying to create. And we're trying to help people find a lifestyle that's healthier for them, that they could, that's practical, that they could continue. Because so many people go on diets and they want to lose weight and then they gain it all back because they're doing these drastic measures. So our mission is to teach our clients, the members of our community, how to lose weight gradually, how to sustain their results for their own lifetime. It's about making new habits and rewiring our brains to serve ourselves. And so our company dives deeper than just weight loss. We dive into mindset, tactics, and accountability. And it's been amazing because I'm such a creative person. I have two sides of the brain. I have that sciencey side, and then I also have the creative side, very humane. I was that girl that would do well in any class you put me in, because I studied hard and I was genuinely interested. I love to learn, except for physics. Physics was the worst, but I think it was because I didn't have the best teacher. So the teacher does play a part, guys. But yeah, so it's great. So I'm able to exercise both. And I've been doing the marketing with my brother. We've been wearing all the hats, the coaching, the marketing, visionary work, deciding on, you know, what's next. Like, what are we, adding on. So currently we are working on shooting. That's why we have the backdrop, shooting a mindset and education tutorial that our clients will go on each week and tune in and get, a week of learning about a certain topic. So having a winner's mindset is one of them, fitness terminology, stuff like that. So we really truly want to build individuals who not only put this in their lifestyle, who gain a stronger mindset that serves themselves, and who also just is educated about what health and fitness is. So yeah, that's what I've been up to with that, but I've been doing other things during COVID as well, working wise.
Yeah, you're always super busy, and I'm so happy that kind of knowing you since your first year in college to now, to really see that you've taken all that momentum and you've kept it going after undergrad, and you're just kind of evolving it into other things. What I love about your business model is that there's actually, like, as we were talking, there's actually a lot of overlap, believe it or not, with the Italian American Leadership Network, even though we're not like a health and fitness organization.
Yeah.
In the sense that there's very much a holistic aspect to it. So there's a lot of, people ask me sometimes, like, okay, like, what makes this initiative, the Italian American Leadership Network, different compared to other Italian American organizations or other professional development organizations? And I'm sure you get similar questions with, like, well, what makes your company different than all the other health and fitness stuff? And I think what we're both doing is similar, and in the void that we're filling in the market from like an entrepreneurial perspective of, like, it's about being holistic. It's not, for on your end, it's not just about like working out and like kind of being unhealthy about it, but really making it a whole lifestyle. Yeah. And then on our end, it's like, yes, we care about professional development and interviews and resumes and all that, but like in a way we're like really getting to know the person, directly connecting them with people who could be their mentors, being able to be down to earth about what their fears are, what their goals are. Yeah, and I believe it was you actually, and it stood out to me so much. Like, this was a few months ago. I think we were on a video meeting with Valentina, who, shout out to Valentina. Hi, I love you. I believe it was in one of those sessions, and I think you referred to me as your career therapist, and it like was like a big like aha moment to me of like, oh, like that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of like what we try to do is like really get to know the person and like what they're going through, and then do the professional development stuff. And I just get the sense that what you're doing in your company has a lot of similarity.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I love that you said that, because I feel like the biggest barrier for me, I know I didn't get so deep and detailed into what I did in college and stuff like that, but I've always come to your office and been nervous. Like, I've had a lot of fear that I've dealt with, and I appreciated you trying to help me sift through that, because those things are important in trying to live the life you want to live. And whether it's weight loss, whether it's whatever choice that you want to make, fear gets behind it, judgment, all of these things. So we have to get real with ourselves, and we have to understand, okay, why do we fear something like this? What are our limiting beliefs? What are things in our past that have made us internalize certain experiences and make them think that they would happen to us? And certain things like that can hold you back from tapping into your power and tapping into, what you want to do and what you want to be and what you think your possibilities are. And for me in college, I struggled, I'll definitely get more into this later, just like committing to what I wanted. I was very much, and still do, don't get me wrong, I'm still in a process of exploration, but before I was just so anxious. Like this would be on my mind every day, thinking about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I could do so much, you know. So many people think it's amazing that, you know, okay, you're smart, you're this, you're that, that's great, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I felt like it was a burden because there were so many options for me, and I had a lot of fears about making money because I dealt with that in my family, a lot of problems with that, with my parents, them getting divorced because of money, and like it all came back to that, and knowing that I'm very good at science, why don't I just be a doctor or something? But then I had this love and this personality that like beamed out of me that I wanted to be nurtured in the environment that I worked. So I had this conflict. I had like two voices in my head. And during the coronavirus, during this pandemic, it has made me able to slow down. I reflected in the past, but truly like, what did I miss? You know, did I miss working at the physical therapy office that I worked at? Or did I miss, you know, working at SNL, which I did too? Do I miss performing? Like, what is it that Alexa wants? And being okay with being truthful about it and seeing our skills and our gifts as actually gifts rather than burdens. So an ECBT services is just another example of how like all of my background, all of those skills are being nurtured because I have to bring it all to this platform. So, you know, we could definitely dive into, you know, that as an example, but I love that because so many of us are held back because of our fears, our insecurities. You know, we come up with this negative self-talk and we think that we're less than, or we don't deserve something. We don't even see the possibility, especially as a woman. And even in Italian households, which I love this network because it's branded towards Italian Americans, which is amazing because we have different struggles, you know. Um, we have different fears. We have parents that maybe are traditional, or grandparents. You know, my grandparents are off the boat, so I'm second generation, but people that are first generation could definitely feel what my mom felt. You know, they have specific thoughts and ideals about relationships and careers. And so many times I've gone to my grandpa's and he's like, okay, so when are you going to go to graduate school, right? And for someone who finished with the 4.0, you know, like I get nervous. I'm like, oh, like the only way to success, I have to go to graduate school like now. You know, I can't wait 2 years. Like, why don't you just get a degree and just follow, you know, the path? But not everyone's path is linear. And I had to really come to terms with that my path isn't linear, and what's best for someone else isn't going to be best for me. So, yeah, I think that's amazing. And that's like honestly what can literally differentiate you from any other career network or company, is the fact that you truly care about people's upbringings, people's fears, because that's what gets us in the way of living the life we want to live.
Right, right. And like the baggage, and the baggage doesn't even necessarily have to be a negative thing,
Yeah.
but the values, the perspectives, pressure other people are putting on you that you bring into
Mm-hmm.
thinking about education, career, all of that are not necessarily the same things that kind of like mainstream USA is dealing with. And I think a big part of that, I mean, not everyone, but for a lot of people, for a lot of Italian Americans, a lot of us are a mix of first generation, second generation, third generation. But like with that, because our families are so close and many of us tend to live around other Italian Americans, which is awesome. We
Yeah.
have like our own community that has its own values that
Yeah.
we're navigating, in addition to kind of like the mainstream US culture that we're navigating. And often our parents or grandparents um, don't really understand that the same way, haven't had the same challenges. And I consistently say this: Italian Americans, especially Italian Americans, kind of millennial Gen Z Italian Americans, are often pioneers in whatever they're doing. So they might be the first person in their family to go away to college. It might be the first person in their family to have a certain type of job. Um, and and this isn't the case for everyone. Everything I'm saying is a generalization.
Yeah, of course. This is a generalization as well.
but it's like you also kind of have to navigate that with your family. So I don't remember the specifics, but I remember like as you were trying to figure out career and what you wanted to do, you sometimes like bring up your grandparents and them saying like, what are you doing? And like you had the pressure from the grandparents, which was so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Yeah,
like,
really from my
what's the plan? Like what is the practical, like very, very practical plan?
Yes. And I honestly don't like that. I don't like to think of a plan that can ever be changed. We are truly evolving as people. And I feel like the freedom to move around is important. I mean, and also I was upset because I felt like they just didn't trust me, like I felt like pulling out like my whole, like everything that I've done in my life. I'm like, just trust me. Like I've shown up, I've done the work, we need freedom to plant the seeds that we want to grow. Right. So like, do you want to plant a sunflower? Do you want to plant a rose? That's up to you. Like my grandparents really had a thought in their head that they could tell me what flower I wanted to plant, for example, like, oh, you should be a physical therapist. And you know what? It went in my head. I was like, you know what? Maybe, like I'm definitely not, they want the best for me at the end of the day. Like our families, for the most part, I mean, general speaking, in terms of my own personal experience, they do want the best for me. But the pressure was just a lot because it made me, it was hard to find my voice in the process. And still do, like I still struggle a little bit with it, but not really. They've really, seen me do my thing, and they know what I stand for, what I'm about, and they trust that, what, Alexa's going to be okay because she's been so okay in the past. So it's just very interesting, but I don't know, this pandemic has really helped me. So things that I've done to help find my voice, I mean, definitely have gotten in touch with nature. I went on a lot of walks. I asked myself some questions and I didn't pressure myself to answer them. One big thing is you need to learn by acting. You need to learn by doing. So many people just think about things, right? Oh, I think I might do this. I think I might do that. And by thinking, we're not actually doing anything. So we can't see if we actually like it, if this is for us. So I'm a big advocator of messy action. And the messy action that I took this summer was, not only did I join Michael in his business, my brother, with an ECPT, but I also hired a mentor, and I spent a lot of money. In my mentor, in a MacBook Pro, which can help me edit, and in a professional camera, which could help me shoot. Because I had this idea in my head for the longest, since I was a kid, that I wanted to be on TV. And okay, so what do you want to do? Like, do you want to act, Alexa? Do you want to do reporting? What is it? Do you want to be a host? I wasn't truly clear, but I said, you know what? Hosting, YouTube, like, let's start there, right? So I hired this mentor. It was so crazy. Instagram is insane. And I was training this woman in LA Fitness because I was a trainer at LA this past year. And her daughter was roommates with this girl who was a communications major, same interest, fitness. She was in theater. I mean, it seemed like a perfect match. And she was starting this business called the On Air Institute. And she was trying to help people try to, become on-air personalities, get more confident. She also brought mindset into it, like trying to figure out our, unlimiting beliefs, and also start YouTube. So I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I could get a TV reel and I could start my YouTube with her, and she could help me, kind of navigate through these fears that I'm having. So I did it like on a whim. Like I saw it that week. I got on a Zoom call with her, and I literally hired her for one-on-one mentorship, and also a community of people that are doing the same thing. And I can't stress enough how like important it is to be around people that want to do what you want to do, because it helps you. Like I was around a lot of nurses in college, which is awesome. But at the same time, like I was always, oh, maybe science, like maybe OT, like maybe PT, because I was surrounding myself with that. But then I said, you know what, if it's truly in my head, if this is a thought that keeps coming back to me, I need to discover it. So I got to this point where I was like, either I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. And I was like, I'm going to do it, no matter what. Like, if I end up continuing with this, great. If this is what sticks, if this is what gives me peace in my heart, amazing. I tried. And if it doesn't, it's one more thought, like one more thing. All right, this isn't for me. But I had to act. I had to go through the process to realize whatever I was realizing. So a few months later, I invested about, I want to say like $5,000 in this whole process, maybe a little bit more actually, because I had to do headshots, I had to get dressed. And there's nothing so powerful than investing in yourself. And I finished my TV reel, which it looks great. I'm actually sending it out to news stations to see what happens, and I'm starting a YouTube channel called Within You. And it's about the same thing. It's about how the power is within you to do everything, to do anything. And I'm really speaking out to high school and college students, that specifically women, but men, anyone, girls, boys, anyone's welcome. Doesn't matter to me. Anyone of any gender is able to come and learn that anyone has the power to do whatever they want, and they're not, they're so enough, they have everything within them to get to where they want to be or to live their best life. And I just want to be that person for them, because I wish I had that when I was in high school or college. So I'm going to do that, and it's coming out in March, finally.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, sorry, I gave you a whole tangent of stuff.
I think someone could meet you and like within 5 minutes be like, this girl needs a YouTube channel. Like, you're just such a natural for that. That is absolutely perfect.
I have to say, one of my fears currently, like, I've been experiencing a lot of doubt this week because I've been watching Criminal Minds on Netflix. And I'm like really nervous about the safety precautions of being online, of being, a personality, even reporting and stuff like that. So that has been actually the beliefs that I've been trying to navigate through now as I'm actually getting into it. And as it's getting more real, I'm getting nervous about the privacy, simple life. I'm thinking way ahead of things, but it does get me nervous, like that anybody could be watching, and who knows what people's intentions are, stuff like that. So like, that's something that I'm actually navigating. And I bet maybe you have some advice because you're doing it right now, which is great. But
yeah, it's so funny because there's a bunch of things that you said that I think will resonate with a lot of people. I'll jump into the one that you just said right now, which I wasn't expecting, but I think, I mean, that's something that could apply to anyone of any background, but I think in particular in the Italian American community, especially like our parents, our grandparents, there's a lot of people within our community that are like, don't put yourself out there, don't say too much about yourself, keep your business to yourself, like, why are you sharing everything? And the world that we live in now is literally the opposite. It's literally like personal branding, like put everything about you on LinkedIn and Instagram, build your brand, like take videos, have a YouTube channel. Like, so like, and I talk to like my Italian family about it, they're like, don't say too much, don't, like, what are you doing, like, why are you putting yourself there?
Oh my gosh, they didn't even allow me to go study abroad, guys. This is actually a great story. They didn't allow me to go to study abroad because they were afraid of who I was going to talk to. Because I'm a talker, I love to communicate, but I also, I went to high school in the city. I took a boat and a train to school. I know enough not who to talk to. I don't just talk to anybody. So they thought that I would release too much information and put myself in danger. So my grandpa literally says that, you give too much, you say too much, Alexa, you have to learn when to be quiet, so I'm getting paranoid over here. I'm like, oh, should I even start this YouTube channel? But then I'm like, oh, if someone needs to hear this, I want to be able to do that. And I don't want to restrict myself. Like, this is who I am, so.
Right. No, it's so funny that you bring that up, because in the last episode on this podcast, there's a whole conversation where I'm talking to one of the interns for the Italian American Leadership Network, Christina, and we're talking about Italian Americans using LinkedIn and how it's like very that concept of like networking with strangers and putting yourself out there is like very new or unfamiliar to our culture. So we were like joking about that. So I showed that clip to my father, but like a 10-minute clip. I showed that clip to my father. The second it's over, he's like, I don't know how I feel about you doing this. You don't want to share your business with everybody. I'm like, that's literally what that clip was just about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. They make me think like I'm putting myself in harm's way, you know, and I'm starting to think that now. I'm watching Criminal Minds and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are crazy out there. Like I'm scared to, you know, put myself out there. But then I see my friend who's on News 18 and I'm like, she's doing great. You know, I'm like trying to come up with examples of people that are killing it and that are doing okay despite their privacy, you know, being leaked a little bit. So, oh,
Yeah, no,
I do overthink. That's been my overthinking lately on safety and media and what to say, what not to share, you know, how to protect myself best when I'm putting myself out there online.
yeah, no, it's amazing because it's like that's a legitimate concern for like anyone. Um, but for the Italian American community, like I feel like our parents like by default have that fear with like everything. So then you just add this stuff on top of it and it's just like what are you doing? Like what's going on?
Yes.
I think that's part of like a bigger challenge and something that you were kind of talking about before with like being part of a community, getting the mentor, investing in yourself. One of the things that stood out to me, um, which was kind of like the concept behind the Italian American Leadership Network, is that for so many Italian Americans, kind of going back to us being pioneers in so many different ways, many of us, let's say, for example, let's say you wanted to be a doctor. There's a really, really good chance that you might be the first person in your family to do.
Yeah.
Let's say you
100%.
want to be a journalist. There's a really, really good
Yeah.
chance that like you're not dealing with like the old boys club and like, you know, oh yeah, my grandmother was like a philosopher or whatever. Like that's not where we come from, most of us. So we don't have like those direct role models, especially for women. We don't have those direct role models right in front of us.
Yes, that's so true. Like my whole family, they're all teachers.
I was
All,
gonna I was gonna ask you if you could talk a little bit about that, about your family background, what they do.
yeah, of course. So I'll start with my grandparents because we've been mentioning them and they're a big part of my life. So only one, so there's a lot of divorce in my family. So let's just start this. So I'm gonna when
Me
I
too, I understand.
when I talk about my family, I'm really going to be talking a lot about my mom's side because my dad's side hasn't really been so much in my life, and he's not full Italian. My dad's side, actually, he's half, I believe, but I'm not exactly sure because my dad and I don't have that relationship. So talking about my mom's side, which has been the most impactful in terms of like time and energy spent with them. My mom's dad and mom are both Italian. However, my mom's dad was in Italy, born in Agrigento, Sicilia, with like he was one of eight and they were supposed to be 12, but at that point in time, some kids, you know, unfortunately had miscarriages, my great grandma. And my grandpa came to the United States at 12 years old. He actually spent 2 years in Sicily with his siblings, with his older sister. He was the youngest out of eight. And they took care of themselves for 2 years, such a young kid at 10 years old. And then came back to United States, Brooklyn to be exact, to see their parents. So they didn't see their parents for 2 years. And I'm not familiar with what my great grandma and great grandpa did. But I can tell you what my grandparents did. So my grandpa, started at school. He learned English very quickly. He was always a worker. So his brother, Vincent, he had a barber shop. That's what he was doing. So my grandpa started cutting hair at an early age. And then, he decided instead of being a lawyer, he actually wanted to be a lawyer, which is interesting. The Vietnam War happened and he decided to become a teacher so that he didn't get drafted. Wow. So he became a teacher, and that's where that whole thing kind of started. My grandpa was the first teacher of his family, actually. His sister became a secretary. She decided to stay at home to help the family during this time. So she didn't go to school. She finished at high school. So then my grandpa was that. And then my grandma lived, actually, she was first generation. No, I think second generation, actually. Yeah. She was second generation. So you could see I'm fourth generation on her side, but second generation on my grandpa's side. So she, was living in Brooklyn. Her mom was, she sewed a lot, a seamstress. Her dad had his own funeral parlor. I don't even know if you would say funeral parlor. Oh my gosh. Funeral place.
That's what it is. Funeral home.
Is it? Yeah. Funeral home. There we go. It's, I'm saying, I don't even know, barber, this and that. So yes, let me keep it going. So my grandma became a teacher, and then her trajectory was she became a teacher and then a principal of a high school. So she has really went up the ranks. And my grandparents met, and unfortunately they divorced. And my mom actually, so just to tell you this, my mom was going to college. She actually was interested in fashion merchandising, but she decided to leave after her first year at FIT and go back to a community college and go for teaching. And that was because, I don't know what dynamics were going on in the home, but she was scared when the professor told her at FIT that if you want a family, this isn't the profession for you. So she switched to teaching. And my grandma actually remarried someone who was a teacher, my papa, the teacher. And my grandpa remarried someone that came off the boat from Italy, from Basilicata in the north, actually. And she was just a school aide. So everyone's teaching, right? And then my grandpa's siblings, daughters, became teachers as well. Everyone's in the education system. So it was like a follow the leader type thing. And then on my dad's side, my dad actually never could hold a job. So that's where you could see the fear coming in. He was into business, mortgage, banking, worked at banks, but he never could really hold a job. He, did some things that we're not proud of in terms of like gambling and things like that. So he fell into that category. And then my parents divorced. And now my mom remarried to someone who's working in the department, DOT. So as you can see, like I have no one on TV. I have no one really in arts and entertainment. Like that was my thing. I was the first dancer. My grandma was dancing and singing as a kid. She kind of lives through me because her dad would always say, that's not a career, Joanne. And she followed her other passion of language and became French, Spanish, and Italian teacher. So my grandma came from she went to high heights, in the education world, became a principal. So she has a lot of expectations. She's so smart. We actually speak in Spanish. I'm bilingual. And so like she's always put pressure on me as a kid. I haven't seen any nurses. My brother would be the first nurse. The only people that I see in my family that's different is my grandpa's brother's daughter, her kids. One of them just became a doctor. The other one wants to be a doctor. And then the other one's a pharmacist. But the pharmacist actually is leaving that job because he doesn't love it. And his passion is fitness and health, similar to my brother. So they like really get together. So there's not much on-air personalities. I mean, none. There's no one reporting. There's no one really into architecture, business, like stuff like that. So it does feel very alienating to, tread on those waters and to like my grandpa believes you go to school, you get a job. That's what happens, like, what are you doing? Like, they think that, you're not on a good path. My grandma, she just wants the best for me. So she pressures since I was a kid, be a doctor, but then also be a dancer. She wants everything. So I felt like I was like torn. And what really hurt me the most was the fact that they supported me. My grandma says she loves me, she supports me, but then sometimes she can put those fears on me. And one thing I've learned is the fact that other people's opinions are their fears, their experiences, their situations, and they're not yours. So, yeah, that's the background essentially. And like the money situation has always been scary because my grandparents have always helped support us, which has made my mom not able to truly make her own decisions, to live the life she wants to live. There's the quote, he who gives the money makes the rules. And it's very true. So I've always wanted to make my own rules. I've always wanted to, not have to depend on anyone, even my husband. It's a dream team, when that happens. So I have a lot of fear in that way. And that's what always deterred me from TV, from the arts, from dancing, because I'm like, oh, where's the money, But I've also learned that you can create anything, and you can make money at what you want to do, but you have to see that that's even a possibility. And I was fed a lot of fear my whole life in those realms. Oh, you're not going to make money. You're so smart. Do this. So if anyone's listening that's relating to this, I want you to have the courage to really make your own path, even if you don't see it. Seeing is not always believing. It's there. It's like Santa, people don't believe in him because they can't see him. I'm not saying that I do, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, sometimes we have to see things. We can't always see things. And women in particular, it's hard because we don't see women, in the media as engineers, as, I don't know, what would be a male job, a construction worker as much, there's a lot less cops that are women, but it's happening. So we need to put ourselves in these positions, even if we're not given them, challenge yourself to think that you can get somewhere that you don't see, whether it's in your family or in the media. And that's what's something I've been dealing with. And I feel a lot more confident in that realm. Like, I'm not as scared to do something different than my grandparents, but I definitely have doubt sometimes, like, oh, maybe I should just be a teacher. Maybe I should just be this, it's in my blood, clearly.
Yeah. And I think so many people can relate to what you're saying. For a lot of Italian Americans, I actually know someone who years ago, she actually worked on her psychology dissertation on Italian American women in particular going into the teaching profession. Because for a lot of Italian Americans, becoming a teacher was like the first like white collar job that a lot of people went into. And it also kind of makes sense because as from a child, you're seeing a teacher. So it's like, oh, that's a job. I get that. That's a job versus like CEO of Goldman Sachs. Like, it's like you're not necessarily seeing that.
No, not at all.
So there's kind of like a little bit more of a blueprint when it comes to being a teacher. And you do end up seeing a lot of that within the Italian American community. By the way, like, my mom is a teacher. I think the teaching profession is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Point being, when you see only a limited amount of options, that does impact you. Because if you're the type of person who's like, yeah, but like I'm an on-air personality type person, then guess what? Being a teacher is probably not going to be the right fit for you. Same thing if everyone in your family owned or worked in restaurants, for example, or worked in a bakery. It's like, well, we have a family bakery, we have a family restaurant. Like, this is what you do, this is the path. It's like one sibling might be all about that, but the other sibling might be like, no, like I want to do internships and
yeah, 100%. I mean, it was definitely hard because I'm sometimes I just thought, like, why not make it easy for myself and just choose something that's linear? Like, you know, like it's, you go from point A to point B to point C, you know, and that's not my interest. Like, I just have to be real with myself, like at this point in time, because like I said before, we're always evolving. So maybe as you get older, that's something that you'd want to look into. I have to say, like, the teaching job is great. I mean, I love to impact kids. I love to teach. It's in my body. I'm actually doing it within an ECPT, within the YouTube channel, pretty much mentoring, teaching, you know, just something different, maybe that we don't, something that we don't hear in schools, right? And you know, it's in my blood. I love it. Maybe it could be a possibility in the future if I want to go back to school for it. But right now, that's not my path. And I had to really come to terms and be okay with going against my family's beliefs, right? And that's the scary part, because as human beings, we want to be loved. We want to be accepted. That's how we are from the core. Like, going back to psychology, I mean, I got my minor in it, so I know a thing or two, but, you know, we feel fear, you know, when we sense danger. So danger could be, wow, following another path, you know, nobody's done it before. I'm the guinea pig, you know, that could mean maybe I won't make enough money. Maybe I won't be successful. Maybe I'll fail, right? This is what we're seeing. So we do the flight response, you know, we see the danger and we fight. But like Charles Darwin, he said the survival of the fittest. We have to learn how to adapt. All right. So that's what I've been trying to do. Adapt to new ways of thinking. And what has helped me, and what I encourage other Italian Americans to do, is to be open-minded and to, you know, I came from a very sheltered home. I went to a Catholic grammar school, where I would always get a ride. I would never use the city bus. I was always that girl. You know, I never had a PB&J until college, first of all. It was always the superette, you know, the prosciutto.
I never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I never tasted jelly until college.
Yes, I never had it, you know, and this is what I would have for lunch, but I would always get a ride, never walk down the street by myself, none of that. So when high school came, and I said, I'm going to go to LaGuardia, you know, which is in Manhattan, where there's not only other Italian Americans, because let's face it, Staten Island's very Italian dominated. Like, there's a lot of people like that out here. I mean, of my culture. When I went to the city, I was experiencing everybody, and I loved it. Like, I love diversity. I loved learning from different people, different cultures, different ways of thinking. I mean, it was beautiful. So it truly opened up my mind to the possibilities, what people were doing. I mean, I had a friend whose dad is Don Roy King, and he works at SNL. He is the person of SNL, the director of SNL. I mean, it's amazing to see that her parent was someone in that field. Like, it was just so crazy to me. So there was this understanding that we had that my family didn't have with me. You know, my grandpa never understood, you know, why are you in rehearsals till 10 p.m.? Like, why aren't you coming home? You know, you've absconded. He always tells me I've absconded. One other thing, I don't know if anyone can relate, but if you don't call them, you have to always call them first. All right. My grandpa will never call me first. I said, Grandpa, you know, it would be nice to hear from you. Like, I'm a human being. I want to know that you're thinking of me. Oh, well, I always think about you. And then my nonna, she goes, oh, you know, your grandfather, he's you know, he's older. You have to respect your elders. You have to call first. I said, no. I said, this is 2020. I said, I would love to hear you call me. Like, you know, I appreciate love. So then recently he's actually been doing it. So I feel so bad when I don't get to answer, because I'm like, oh God, like, I'm not giving him a reward for his good behavior. Yeah, so he never understood. It still doesn't. Oh, you're in dance, you're dancing, you know, like, what is dancing to him? So it's very good. It's funny.
You ended up doing an internship at Saturday Night Live, which is
I did. Yeah. So that was great. I mean, oof, like, so one thing I mean, I felt, being in the background scenes, it was so interesting to see like TV from the backside, and I met so many different people. I mean, I brought guests to their dressing rooms, so I was able to talk to them. It was a whole other world. It was very interesting, something I've never experienced. And like I said, my grandpa really didn't even know what I was doing. He didn't even know what I was doing. He didn't really understand the concept, right? So they don't really understand it. And you'll start to talk to them and they won't really even be listening. They'll be there, but they won't really be listening. But you come to accept it. It's okay. We live from different experiences. They've never experienced like anything like that. So just be like learning how to understand, which is why this is so great, the Italian American Leadership Network. It helps you understand, it helps you go through, all the things that you experience to help you understand your people above, right? Your grandparents, your parents, maybe your cousins, your uncles, how they, believe things to be, and how you don't always have to take those beliefs as yours, like you are a different person. So it's really nice to be able to talk about it here because I haven't had a time to really talk about my heritage or like my background and like how that has impacted me. But talking about it actually really helps me realize how much, how much it's really not about me when they're expressing any like, I'm against this or whatever. It's really about them and what they believe. And you have to remember that.
Yeah, no, and it's what you were saying about like when you were talking to them about the internship, and it's like they don't really fully get what you're doing or the value of it. I 1,000% could relate to that. I mentioned it briefly in a podcast where I was interviewed for the Italian American podcast. But when I was in college and I was doing internships, the first person in my family to do internships, and it was in the summer and I was commuting to Manhattan, and I was so like excited, like this is what you're supposed to do, this is so cool. And my father, who my mother was born here, but my father was born in Italy. He was born in the Basilicata region, like similar to what you're saying. So it's not like, yeah, so it's not like north of Rome, but it's north of Sicily.
North of Sicily.
Yeah, so it's just like it's north of Sicily. And you would have thought I like the internship was unpaid, but I didn't care because I'm like, I just like, this is amazing. I was like at this organization that was so cool, and they were in Soho, and it was like an amazing privilege to be there. And when he found out like it wasn't paid, he didn't understand what the internship was. Like I could have been in like human trafficking. Like he was like, "What is this? Like you're not getting paid? Like I don't understand. What do you mean you're working for experience? Like just no concept of it whatsoever." And like there were fights. Like we would fight about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then from talking to other people with a similar background, being like, "Oh, like something similar happened to you, like I totally understand." But at the time when you're dealing with it, you're like, is this just me? Because then I would go to the internship and like everyone, all the other interns were like from like different types of cultures where like their family was supportive. A lot of them, like there was one person that like their parents like paid for them to have an apartment in Manhattan so that they could like just make their internship here. Like completely different. So I just think it's like important to know that like there's going to be additional obstacles that you're going through. And then actually, because you mentioned Staten Island a little bit, and I just, people could be listening to this from all over the world. So if you can explain a little bit what it's been like for you to grow up on Staten Island, and if you find that, are you unique compared to a lot of people there? Like, how would you describe that experience?
So it's very interesting because if you ask different people, they'll have different answers. But I was lucky enough to go and travel into the city for high school. So you won't even see my accent. Only when I get upset, like I'll start going bad, mad, right? So like people, when you meet a Staten Island person, unless they have outside experience, right? So growing up in Staten Island, yeah, no, it's true. I mean, this is not even like an assumption. This is real, guys. There is an accent that is present, but mine is very lowered down, but when I get angry, it does come out. I'm like, why are you talking like that? But growing up in Staten Island, I first actually grew up in Brooklyn. I came here at 5, and I went to a Catholic grammar school from first grade to 8th grade. And I was in a dancing school here, which was amazing because the dancing school was literally my place. You know, it was my everyday, like 5 days a week out of the 7, sometimes 6. But I was always like around Italian parents. I mean, this was it. Like I told you, it's very highly Italian. I never really saw African Americans. I never saw a lot of Latin Americans. It's very, I feel like very, you know, one-sided. You don't see a lot of cultures around, like not even, you know, I'm not representing everyone here, really not a lot of other cultures. And I really just knew about the Catholic religion. So I didn't see, you know, I didn't meet anyone that was Muslim or that any other, you know, any other religious entity. So I was very sheltered. I was very sheltered in that way. Even in my grammar school from 1st to 8th grade, we pretty much all were Italian or Irish. That's really it. And when I went to high school, it all changed, you know, and I felt like I felt like I was home finally, you know, because I truly was always this person that I'm not like into the gossip. I was never a gossiper. You know, you'll find a lot of, I mean, you could find that in any culture, but like, and that didn't even have to do with culture. I think it just dealt with a lot of people's insecurities and things like that. But I've always was like, not always wanting to get out, always had this attraction to Manhattan, to the city, to the lights, to, you know, that type of life. I don't know why, since I was little. And I just finally felt like I was in my zone when I left Staten Island. And I actually know for a fact that I will not live here. I do not want to live here. And that's just because I'm over it. Like, I just feel like a lot of people are similar. You know, this is an assumption too. Like, some people might feel different. A lot of people are the same. I just want something new. I feel like Staten Island, you know, it's not the worst place to live. It's not the best place to live. It's, you know, I'm lucky to be living here, you know. But at the same time, it's just like, it's like a little town. You'll see people that you always see everywhere. There's really no escaping. You know, people aren't, because of maybe the cultures, who knows, like, people aren't those people that think outside the box, or are entrepreneurial. I don't see a lot of entrepreneurial people here. Like, you see that happen in New York City, LA. There, of course, are those people. I mean, I'm one of them, but it's not a lot. There's not a lot. So, you know, growing up here, I mean, I had a great childhood. Don't get me wrong. I didn't experience anything bad, but now that I'm older and I could really think about it, I wouldn't want to live here. I don't think it would be a bad place to raise children. Not at all, but it's just, I love the beach. There's no beaches here. I really like good environments. I feel like it's just not, from the eyes look either, like the best environment to be in. But I do appreciate, not gonna lie, if you ever, you know, come to Staten Island, I appreciate the good Italian cuisine. I appreciate, you know, the delis and the the superettes that you can't get everywhere. So that's something like that's alive here, and it's in Brooklyn too. But if you go, for example, to Manhattan, like, I don't see as much superettes like you'll see in Staten Island. So
no, I lived in Manhattan for about 10 years, and I love a very similar background to you in the sense that, like, I just always had something that drew me there. But the lack of like legit Italian food was a problem. I was like, I can't.
Right.
Right. Like, this isn't real Italian food. I need real Italian food.
I know. And you know what? Like, I have some, I don't know, there's stomach issues that go through my family. I don't know if it's an Italian thing. Like, everyone Italian, I feel like, has some stomach problems. All my cousins do. I mean, it's blood though. And I'm not a big pasta lover, all right, and I'm not a big fish lover. So everyone during Christmas, when they have the 7 fishes, I mean, I'm always the odd one out. I actually this year, because of COVID, I got into shrimp and I got into the lobster was pretty good, but like I don't go crazy for it. So I like farm to table food. I love that. And Manhattan has it all the time.
Yeah.
It's grilled chicken, avocado, sweet potatoes, asparagus. A lot of people listening might not agree with me, but some people might. And if you do, I can relate to you
Yeah.
guys because I'm not all about always the pasta, the Sunday sauce. I actually, guys, when I grow up, I'm not gonna make Sunday dinner all the time. It's a once in a while type thing, once a month maybe. But for my family, it's Sunday dinner, at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock with meatballs and pasta and sauce. I can't do it. I'm like, can you bake my cutlets? Why do you have to fry them?
No, I think you bring up such a good point of what so many people now are trying to navigate. Um, just like, okay, the pros and cons of the traditional Italian American culture versus kind of traditional US culture, and then like kind of what's modern and evolving, and how do we navigate that? Because it doesn't mean that, like, I love, 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 love. I'm so passionate about like Italian American food. I love it. But is that something that like I literally eat every day? No, I just had like grilled chicken and avocado, like what you're saying.
Have,
Um, so
have
it's
you
like
ever had like Thai or Indian? Because I haven't. I
I've
mean,
never
none of us have ever tried this.
hmm Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's like it's either this or like it's very specific. And I think for people, particularly millennials, Gen Z, it's like, okay, we have also access to so much, like regardless of even money, just like being able to just see things on Instagram, to go on different menus, like we're able to see other people's lifestyles. How is this person living? So it's like, okay, what do I want to take with me in terms of my Italian American culture, but what fits and what doesn't fit. So, for
Yeah.
example, if you have, like, the Italian American culture is very, 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 very much about family, which is awesome.
Yes,
That
love it.
said, if you have like toxic people in your life, in your family, it doesn't necessarily mean that should keep them in your life because of your family if it's not healthy. So it's like, that's like a modern concept. How do we
It's
navigate
very,
that?
yeah.
We were saying about, like, if you had, like, your own family, like, would you be doing Sunday dinner literally every single Sunday? It's like, on a practical level, that might just not work. But like you were saying, it might be like once a month, or like Christmas, for
Yes,
example, Christmas might be over the top. Like, there's ways you can integrate the culture
sure.
while also navigating your actual life now.
Yeah, well, I also love that you wrote Italian American because like that
Yes.
the whole thing is Italian American because it's not just Italian, right? So
Mhm.
like there's an American part in there, that we all can relate to too. So it's like we share both. My grandpa, even though he lives in America, he's Italian. He hasn't totally like ingrained himself in the American culture. If he's going out, it's gonna be Italian food. Once in a while he'll do Asian, but he always complains after.
Mhm.
And once I took him to this acai bowl spot, and he's like, "What is this? I just want eggs and toast. What is this?" I'm like, Grandpa, just try it. He doesn't want it. Oh, I'm never gonna do this again. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's totally different. I'm actually dating right now, my first boyfriend. Um, so that's interesting because my grandpa, doesn't really even understand that. Oh, you're talking to, are you actually dating? He's my boyfriend's Albanian. So it's a different culture. Albania and Italy are very close. But, we're struggling with actually his family being off the boat Albanian and not really accepting me, even as an Italian. Not that I've really met them. So we're like me trying to be patient in that aspect and have hope for something. Hopefully, everyone's different, but I bet like that has been an issue for a lot of Italian Americans is relationships and like what is their family going to accept and stuff like that. So I've been grateful that my family is very accepting in terms of that and very like open arms, come in, have some cake. I don't know if anybody watches Sebastian Maniscalco, but my mom and dad love him. And he had this whole thing about, back then, when it was my grandparents' time, pretty much when they were hosting, oh my God, somebody leave the door open, let everybody come in, have an Entenmann's cake, for anybody coming in. Now it's like, shut the doors. If you hear the doorbell ring, put out, an eyeball out of one window. We don't got anything to give to anybody, and it's so different now, even in that aspect. So things are constantly changing, but yeah, I mean, I love talking about the culture because I feel like there's not many forums to really talk about it.
Yeah. And there's so many more things I would love to ask you. I'd love to ask you about the navigating of relationships, and it's so interesting that like his family is having challenges with the Italian side and all of that. So I'm really curious to ask you more questions about that in the future. I would love to talk to you more in the future about your entrepreneurship, specifically as you're getting things off the ground, your YouTube channel. I have a lot of really interesting kind of research that I'm doing on Italian Americans and entrepreneurship in the sense that so many of our ancestors were entrepreneurs. Like someone owned the bakery, someone owned the restaurant, someone owned this, someone owned that. Someone owns the seamstress store,
whatever. The barber shop, for example.
We do have that in our culture. It's just like now bringing in like social media and YouTube and evolving it to where we are now. So in the future, I'd love to talk to you about all of that. And I would also love to talk to you in the future more about your family, if they experience, whether your mom, your grandparents, if they experience any challenges in terms of being Italian American, being immigrants, in terms of just like fitting in, any discrimination, anything like that.
Listen, if you have interviewed my grandpa with me, he would love. He's an actor, this guy. Okay, guys. So I'm just putting it out there. If he ends up on this interview, he's gonna love it. He will share his story. I'm part his therapist, part his singing partner. We sing Sinatra a lot, so he'll even give a show. But my grandpa's very proud of the Italian heritage, and he's also he's experienced a lot of discrimination. I mean, he's come here, when they were calling Italians wops and guineas and stuff like that. So he would have a lot to say about that, and I appreciate like his whole background with that. And also like a lot of things when crime was up and they were like blaming it on Italians because of all of that, all the stereotypes going on about that too. So
sure, I would absolutely love to interview both of you, especially because in our career counseling sessions over the years, you definitely stood out to me because in the career counseling sessions, like you would bring up your grandparents, which is like not as like the average American student is not doing that, but it's definitely like Italian Americans tend to bring up their families when they're talking about career development. So I would love to kind of have that come full circle.
Oh, listen, I am so down for this. I think it would be hysterical. Everyone would have to tune into this because if I had, first of all, both of my grandparents on Zoom, one being my grandpa and then the other one being my grandma. All right, they're both divorced, but they're civil. So that would be really interesting. And then you could obviously ask these challenging questions and maybe help them understand what's going on in terms of my mind, because having that other person, I've always wished that there was this other person to be like the mediator.
I was about to say, I'll be the mediator.
Yeah. And I feel like everybody would be interested in something like that because it's really tackling, maybe differences head on and helping people bridge understanding rather than like, oh, you think this way, you think that way, you're this, you're that. That's not what it is. So that would be really cool. I will totally tell them about this proposal. And
let's do it. I'm so excited. I think that would be so interesting for so many people. I know you have to go because you're an entrepreneur and you have
yes, I have to teach a ballet lesson right now, actually, guys, because I'm keeping dance in my life. Dance is a big passion of mine, and it was important to do more of it. So I have a lesson to teach. And just a fun fact, in my classes, I try not to just teach dance. I try to make sure that these girls are being the best human beings they can be. So like when they go across the floor, for example, I say, stop talking, really pay attention to the other person, because people think they're talking about other people. So I'm trying it all. I'm bringing the family teaching into existence here with my dance gig.
you're building a family in the work that you're doing.
Yes.
Awesome.
But definitely, I would love to come back, talk with my grandparents, talk about relationships. My YouTube channel should be airing in March. I'm actually this month doing like the trailer part, where like the beginning of the YouTube channel will start, like each will start with that. So I would love to come back and talk about it, and hopefully one day have you on it. I mean, at some point.
I'd be absolutely honored. I'm so happy that we finally got to organize this, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Yes. Thank you, guys.